Okay.
It's getting hot already.
For you?
Hey, Ray. Why did
Hey.
the monkey fall out of the tree?
Uh,
Why did the monkey fall out of the tree?
Why?
Because it was dead.
Aww.
Why did the second monkey fall out of the tree?
There was a second monkey?
Yeah, it was tied to the first monkey. Why did the third monkey fall out of the tree?
He was tied to the second monkey.
No, he got knocked down by the two monkeys that were falling out of the tree. There was another monkey.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Do you know why he fell out of the tree?
Peer pressure?
No, he was just laughing so dang hard. The next monkey fell out because of peer pressure. So why are we talking about peer pressure today?
Oh, because, things just go through our generations and through our cycles and through our lives like freight trains, and
Yeah.
we don't even know it. We just kind of herd mentality sometimes, shut
Right.
ourselves off, and all of a sudden we're doing things we never wanted to do.
Right. And
Yeah.
this month is crazy because people are getting super excited about how they are boycotting things and making statements and all that.
We've boycotted things before based on pretenses
Yeah.
and
I remember-
principles and stuff.
I remember not watching The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Disney because it was a horrible depiction of the Catholic Church.
Yep, it was scandalous.
And
It was the
mad.
scandalous at that time,
It
and now
was.
we just realize that Disney creates a scandal every time they put a movie out so they can have
More
Yeah.
scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no such thing as bad publicity.
No bad
And
PR.
Disney makes some great things and they make some bad things. But June, typically, in olden days, at least since about the 1600s, with Saint Margaret Mary of Alaquoc.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do your study on her?
I failed.
You did? Okay.
Big
right.
stamp
So-
fail
so
right
this is-
across my face.
So
right
this is totally not going to be a great study on it. But she was a nun.
Teach me.
She was a French nun.
Yes.
And she had a vision of
Mm-hmm.
Jesus speaking to her. And he described this image of his heart on fire.
Yes.
On a throne of fire.
Yes.
And the cross was on there, and it was surrounded by the crown of thorns. And basically every time we would sin, that crown of thorns is kind of like crushing on the
Constricting it.
heart, and
Okay.
he feels it. So the idea is that it still burns with love. That's my interpretation of
I
it
like
anyway.
that.
And so the Sacred Heart is for us to remind us that Christ's love is on fire. And even though, because he's omnipotent and he's in before, now, and forever, every sin that we commit, he feels
Right.
over and over again.
Like a
God,
crushing-
Yes. So it's a constant ache. So God wants to be with us. He wants us to be with him, but we have to be without sin, because if we're in sin, that crushing weight of the thorns and of the cross and everything he's still actively feeling that.
Right.
So about 100 years after that image and that vision that this nun had, an artist created the image of the Sacred Heart.
That we have now.
Actually, not the one that you have now.
Oh.
So it's I'll put it up and I'll try
original
to
one.
Yeah, so I'll try to describe it from memory. So
It's
it's
very
not in front of
flowery.
me. So it's got some it's a little smaller, but he was very intentional about making his robe red. So Jesus's robe is red, and then he's clothed in another robe that's blue, and that fiery throne is there pushing out the rays. And then we talked about Divine Mercy later, which was really another interpretation of the Sacred Heart image. And so here's that image.
Yeah.
And so this was the original image that Sister Faustina commissioned. So she was alive to see this image, whereas St. Margaret Mary wasn't alive to see the first Sacred
Correct.
Heart image. And then people had that devotion to the Sacred Heart already when this new Sister Faustina image came out, the Divine Mercy. So the church in its wisdom decided to combine the two and made this image. And this is the one that you see in most churches now. And so why do we talk about this? Well, ever since way back when, June has been the month of the Sacred Heart.
Yes.
And unfortunately, most people haven't really paid attention to it, especially if you're not Catholic. And June has become something else, especially in the United States. It's become the month of Pride. And it talks, it's focused on the LGBT community. I'm not going to all the other letters.
You don't need to.
Right. So that is what it's become in our current culture. And they've taken this image of the rainbow, which is our image, Noah. It's a sign of our covenant with God. And so they've taken this image, much like
the image of peace is what it originally stood for.
And this is the second time it's happened.
Promise fulfilled.
Right.
Yes.
In short history, this is the second time a image of peace was changed into an image of pride, of sin, and of debauchery. I mean,
well, it also creates division too, because you have to be put into those letters, and then you have all these different colors that show up, and then new colors come, and different prisms on the
And I want to be clear.
It creates more division than it does unity.
And there's two.
It's not peace.
Yeah, and there's two pride flags. So we got to talk about the two. There's one that's just the rainbow colors. That's the one that was traditionally the one that people said, you know, I'm gay, I'm going to just tell people, and I'm just going to let my friends know. It's no big deal, but, you know, so that was it. The one that's got the triangles and stuff on it, that's the one that's become a guidon. And the reason it's become a guidon, and that's a military term, is it's become a flag that people will fight under. And they have caused fights. And there's
like
a lot
the American flag.
Right.
Yes.
So this image of peace, this rainbow,
like the Confederate flag,
was turned was turned into this image of acceptance, of, you know, the pride that we knew of the friends that we had in college and stuff, and that first instance of accepting them and accepting marriage, gay marriage, and that stuff. So that was that flag. Then it pushed a little further, and this new flag, which is really interesting,
because acceptance is acceptance and tolerance, and then...
So if you take the new flag, there's another image of peace that the Native Americans used to use, and it was
the two-spirit.
Yeah, actually, it was before that, but they used to use, and it was all over our country in imagery, and the Nazis changed it.
Oh yes.
And made it into the swastika. They changed the direction, so just tweaked it a little bit. So so you take the swastika, and you've got this image that used to mean peace, and they've changed it to something that wasn't. So you have this rainbow flag, which meant peace among the first LGBT community that said, hey, we just want to live with you guys. So it meant peace. And then it was co-opted, and then all these other things were added, colors and all this other stuff. Well, if you put those together, have you ever seen this? Have I shown you this? I'll put it up. But if you put that new pride flag together with the colors, put 4 of them together, you'll see this. It's a swastika. Yeah. So things always come back full circle.
Flies going around here.
So things come around full circle. So there's these symbols that are peaceful and they're corrupted. The Sacred Heart, the month of the Sacred Heart. This is an image that we've seen corrupted a lot.
Yeah.
And you see it on album art. People, you know, Madonna has used it. It's been used in Hollywood. Yeah, there's Buddy Christ from the movie Dogma. People make fun of it. But the image itself has lasted forever.
Yeah.
And it is one of peace. The people that would hate it don't understand that, like the American flag that I love, and for a time I was starting to get a little sad about it, but there's more to it. And so you can go back to it. And I think I did that too much because I just lost my train of thought. I did. So
we're talking about guidons.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. Well, peace, the symbol of peace had been co-opted.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
we have a whole new vocabulary that we have to learn.
Which is okay. We can learn that. There's a book outside called The Gay BCs.
Yes.
So I don't need to read it today, but let's talk about it. Because a lot of people are going to be mad about it. I reviewed it on my other channel a long time ago, then I took it off because we rebranded the channel, but that was the only reason that I took it off. It wasn't because I was ashamed that I reviewed this book. I bought this book, how was it, a few years ago. It would have been almost 2 years ago now.
Maybe one or 2 years ago, yeah.
But we bought it because it was in the news, and it was this book that was teaching kids gay terms. And things like A is for ally, and B is for bisexual, and C, I can't remember all the other ones. But at the time I said something. I said, if you have gay parents, this is probably a really important book. You should have this. And these are terms that we should know. These are terms that you should know. So go to the library, open it up, look at it, learn these terms, because these are the terms that are going to be a part of our society, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. Peace, love. Yes. So that's kind of where I was going. That's where I lost my thought. It was the idea that when the Sacred Heart appeared it was about, I love you so much. I'm sacrificing so much for you. And it was
my heart is burning.
My heart is burning. I love you. I love you. I love you. And here 600 years later, it still says that. I love you. That image still says that. I love you. I'm burning for you. This other image that's been co-opted, every time an image gets co-opted, it changes into something ugly and violent and chaotic. We talked about the gifts of the Holy Spirit last week.
Yeah.
And I just kind of glanced at the sin, the deadly sins. And the deadly sins are so apparent. Pride is the number one deadly sin. So it's that sense that you're better than someone else.
I mean, just the
The word pride, yeah. It's not like pride in your football team. It's the pride that makes you feel you're better than other people. And it's a pride that Christians often
because it
fall
defines you
into.
as different
Yes.
or not the same.
So pride in
Rather
its
than
original definition is the opposite of humility. And as Christians,
Makes you stand out.
yeah, and as Christians, we have to go towards that. We have to be humble, which means, yeah, we have to just love.
Yeah.
There is that love. And then they tell us that we're not loving right.
Right.
And then
Because we're not accepting the pride.
right. So, and then that's the thing is we have to have the fortitude that we talked about to just say, you know what? Pride, I understand, you know, you love yourself. Maybe a little too much, maybe you need to love something outside. But then you look at the other ones, greed. You know, our society is one of greed. We're thinking money. We're spending money. We're stealing money. We see our politicians doing it. I mean, just open the news. I pop the news up and I'm looking at. I'm not even talking about the news because it's just sick. Just type in President Trump latest, President Biden latest. There's trash out there, and you don't even know what's real and what's not.
Yeah, and people are saying, "Yay, my side." How do you combat greed?
With charity. And charity, the definition of charity is different than what most people think of right away. You think soup kitchen, you think
Giving money.
giving that kind of thing, and dropping money into that, the homeless
But
person's
those
cup.
are all acts of charity.
They are.
Acts of love because
Right.
love is an action word.
So that's
Yes.
what it is. So if you are greedy, you have to give. You have to sell everything you have and go on, and follow him. So, yeah, what's the next one?
Next one, let's talk about envy.
Envy. So I kind of mentioned before we had to do the other cut. Filled with cuts today.
It's okay.
That air conditioner.
I know, that darn thing is so loud.
thing. So envy. I was mentioning that our kids see that more than we probably do now. Back in the 80s, everybody's like, I gotta have the best car, I have the biggest house. People, after the pandemic, I think people are just kind of like, yeah, it's not so important anymore. But our kids see skins and articles of stuff they can use in video games as things they have to have. And I asked my son, I'm like, hey, what do you need? Does this help you win the game? And he'll be honest, no, I'll look cool, Dad, and I really have to have this, and I want to be on fire, I want to be the kaiju that's blowing things up. So we have to limit that and kind of remind him, yeah, you don't have to look the coolest to be the coolest,
Right,
and that idea of just stepping back and not being so greedy and so all that stuff.
Yeah. Envy can be combated very easily with an act of kindness.
Yeah.
So I am constantly filling myself with knowledge about personality and things like that. And the latest thing I heard is that resentment is often seen as anger.
Yeah.
But I think it needs to be seen as envy.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
Because it's the jealousy of the other person allowing themselves to have less boundaries than you do.
Yeah, and that's a much easier way to tackle it if you can recognize it as, hey, I'm being envious. I can knock that out.
Yeah, and it's not an anger thing, so it's been misdirected.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool one. But so to combat that, we perform an act of kindness. What's something that you can do when you're resentful towards somebody? You lean into them.
Yeah,
you lean into them and say, how are you having so much fun? What's your secret?
Yeah, why am I not having this fun?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Why are you having so much fun? I was making sure it was still on. All right, so what's the next one? We're kind of out of order.
We're going up. Wrath is
Wrath.
next. Yep.
That's a funny counter to wrath. It isn't, but it is.
Oh no, it's perfect.
Okay, so
Yes,
tell me. So
because
wrath
I've
is this
been
rage, this intense, like I hate everything about me, you, and the dog.
mostly me.
Everything.
So
So,
it just seeps out into everything like acid. Yeah.
like I hate you.
No, it's
That's what it sounded like. You
yes.
said,
No,
mostly
mostly
you hate me. You know?
the wrath is
Or-
mostly I hate myself.
Yeah.
Type of thing, and then it seeps
So
out.
it's internal. What you're trying to say? It's me. It's me. It's internal. Yeah. So wrath comes
usually,
from within.
yes, yeah, and if you don't know me, I'm an Enneagram expert, and I will use those words, and I think Willie will Pee Wee Herman me someday with that word, but I am an 8. I have decided I am an 8, and that temperament is rooted in the amygdala, which is body sensation reaction, and it's geared towards anger.
Okay.
So that's the way my trauma has settled in my body to make sense of myself when I was younger. So as an Enneagram 8, my first reaction when my trauma is triggered, anything could trigger my trauma, my trigger, to trigger my trauma, because, you know, like any whatever reason, and I see myself going towards that, the first thing I need to tell myself is to breathe.
Okay.
And take a minute, and that requires patience.
Patience. Yep.
And I think you saw me today saying I'm practicing patience. I'm practicing my patience. Yeah. It's a really...
Patience is not as hard as people think it is. And people often say, I'm not going to pray for patience because God's going to test me.
Well, we've said that.
That's dumb.
Guilty.
I stopped saying it. Actually, I've never said it. People said it around me.
No,
but
it's
I've never
dangerous
said it.
to pray for patience. Yeah.
I have never, ever said that I won't pray for patience because God will test me. I pray for patience because you have to strengthen your muscle.
Yeah.
If you're not strengthening your muscle, you
can't walk up the hill.
I was reading something earlier, and I posted on Facebook. You probably saw it, but it was about a person carrying a cup of coffee, and someone bumps their arm, and their coffee spills everywhere. And it's like, why did you spill the coffee? Because they bumped my arm. No, that's not why you spilled your coffee. You spilled coffee because you had coffee in your cup.
Right.
If you had tea in your cup, you would have spilled tea. If you had water in your cup, you would have spilled water.
But they would have done it, not you.
Yeah, so the idea is that when we are tested and we're bumped, then what we fill ourselves with is what pops out. So if we fill ourselves with wrath and anger and all that stuff, or whatever these deadly sins are, and not the virtues, when something little pops up, it could be very little, you explode with these sins versus exploding with the virtues.
Right.
You spill the coffee and you laugh. You just thank God that nobody got hurt. Nobody got burned, you know. You laugh at Jay when you literally spill it on his back because you were like looking at what he... I didn't tell you about that, did I?
You spilled coffee
I did. I spilled coffee. It was already like 30 minutes after I drank it. So it was warm, but it wasn't hot, but it was hot enough. So he's like, come over here, Dad. He was watching something on the video. So I'm looking over his shoulder doing a little thing and just not even realize it. And all of a sudden he goes, wow! Yes, I'm burning! And I look and I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, I poured it right down the small of his back. So he had to take his shirt off and we had to get him changed. And like I said, it wasn't that hot. I was like, it wasn't that hot, you know, so he laughed after he figured out what it was. But yeah, I was just looking at him, just spilled my coffee.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but that's hilarious.
But yeah, he's a funny kid. You can imagine. But he didn't cry or lose it. He was just like, oh my gosh, my dad's spilling coffee on me.
Or tea or whatever.
So what was the next one?
Sloth.
Sloth. Oh, I hate sloth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one that I don't know why I have such an aversion to it.
Yeah, this is a blessed fatherhood moment. He has told our children multiple times, I don't care who you date as long as you don't date a lazy person.
You don't date lazy. Lazy is something you cannot get over. You can get over dumb. You can't get over stupid, but you can get over dumb.
You can get over lazy.
Ignorant. Lazy takes fortitude.
A lot of effort.
A lot of fortitude. Because if you start off lazy, you're just gonna be lazy.
Yeah.
And even if you don't start off lazy, if you don't work that muscle, you are going to not
Go
have
right
it.
back into it.
Yeah,
Very
go right back
easily.
into it. And that's a really easy one to get into because
So yeah,
video games. You can
right.
sit on video games all day.
All day.
Adults and you never go outside. You never see the sun. You never interact with anything real. And yeah, I mean, some people are making money on video games, but that's not very good.
And even that's their job, and they set it aside
Right,
to go do the real thing.
Right, so they'll do that from 9 to 5, and then they'll go outside. But yeah, when you are actually just there and you're not doing anything else, that's when you're starting to get into sin. So, you know, start to take away 30 minutes a day of your time.
Yeah, go look at green.
Yeah, check out
trees.
Green. Check, you know.
Yes.
If you're doing 50, you know, if you're doing 5 hours a day watching Netflix or videos or YouTube or whatever, go to 4 hours and 30 minutes and go take that 30 minutes to, look at green. Look at green. So,
yeah, diligence.
God wants you outside.
Yes, yes. You know, if you've heard of Andrew Huberman, he talks about first sunlight. If it's possible for you to get first sunlight, do it.
Yeah, that's going out watching the sunrise. It's beautiful. So, you were talking about the Enneagram later. If you guys want to hear about the Enneagram, let us know in the comments. Otherwise, that's a whole nother show. We don't want to get her talking
one that
about
he
the
probably
Enneagram.
won't be on the screen for.
Yeah, I'll probably be behind the camera or something. I'll make some points. So, what's the next one?
The next one we have is greed. Well, we talked about greed. So the next one is gluttony.
See, we're just kind of going up and down.
Yeah.
So gluttony.
We'll talk about it.
Gluttony is American. It's
very American.
It's
so American.
It's not just drinking until you're drunk.
No, it's not just drinking.
Eating until you're full.
It's all of it.
It's just the
video games.
The stuff. It's the constant getting of stuff. Give me. And there's never any going out. So the opposite of that, we talked about the word temperance, and that's the idea that you can have that patience. I mean, all of them go together. You have to use all these virtues at the same time. And sometimes you're much better. Some people are much more patient than others.
You have different levels of things at different times in your life, though, based on the muscles that you use.
Right. So stop.
Collaborate and listen.
Hey, tell me what temperance is.
I was just starting to talk about ice, baby.
Yeah.
So it's self-restraint. It's cooling yourself down. It's saying, hold on a minute.
Yep.
Let's take this back a minute and see, maybe.
It's also called moderation.
Maybe I'm doing a little too much. Yeah.
It's I'm gonna have a glass of wine, not a bottle. You know, it's I'm gonna play video games for an hour, not for 24.
Right.
That's your moderation.
Yeah.
And I think we've gone through all of them. Let's see: pride,
Except
envy,
lust.
wrath, lust. No, not lust.
Right.
Sloth, greed, gluttony, lust. Lust. That's one that we hear a lot. People are proud of lust, and we see it in commercials. We see it everywhere.
It's sex sells.
Sex sells.
That's it.
So
Marketing 101.
So the opposite of sex is
chastity.
But chastity doesn't mean no sex. Chastity means you have sex based on your state in life. That's what chastity means. It means if you are single, you abstain from sex. If you are married, you have sex with her and no one else, or with him and no one else. It's within your vocation. If you're a priest, you don't have sex. Because it's within your vocation. So chastity is so much bigger than not having sex. It's what your vocation is and how you treat your body within that vocation. So when someone is being like wearing really provocative things and you start to feel nice or sexy with them, you know, you have to think to yourself, is that right? Sexy, whatever. I don't know. So you have to ask yourself, is this right, good, and just?
Right.
And oftentimes when it comes to sex, if it's outside of marriage, it is not right, good, or just. It has to be within
messy,
that.
it's gross, it's bad.
Yeah, and
it's dumb.
You hear people say it all the time, but nothing really good can come from sex outside of the marriage union. Nothing. I mean, you can have great children, and yes, those are blessings, but the relationship between that husband and wife, or not,
is the ideal.
Yeah, it is.
As Jordan Peterson
but
says,
it doesn't.
It's the ideal.
Yeah, but it doesn't. You can't practice it. You can't take a test run because, it's as simple as finances.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, well, we'll save money if we live together before we're married because we'll only have one mortgage or one this or one that. Well, speaking from people who had 2 different houses and 2 different utility bills and all that stuff, what was really easy? Only having one after we got married.
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of us saying, like, figuring things out, which most people do, they live their own lives and they're like roommates and they do their thing and they have separate bank accounts and stuff and then they get married, but there's no relief. When you court for 2 years and you have 2 separate bank accounts and you have 2 separate houses and you have 2 separate bills, the day you're married and all that is combined, you have just
jackpot.
You've just pushed yourself, excelled yourself forward.
Yeah.
So many years.
Especially if you've been saving and getting yourself out of debt.
Right.
And all that
and
stuff
those are the things you really
during.
need to do. And if you can follow the virtues, let's get rid of those sins, follow those virtues, you could find that
Fill
mate.
your cup.
Fill your cup. Fill it with chastity. And remember, that's not having sex. If you're married, you should be having sex with your spouse. If you haven't had sex with your spouse in a month or 2,
talk.
You guys need to talk. You guys need to be making love. And it's important whether you want to have kids or not. You guys you need to be doing that. And if you're not talking about it, you're just setting yourself up for that sinful stuff.
Yeah. I also read something, I don't remember who wrote it because it was a couple months ago that I read it, but it's stuck with me. And it's, if you have not changed in your relationship with X, enter here, in the last 5 years, if your relationship hasn't changed in some way, then you're not in it.
Oh yeah, you're not progressing. You're not yourself.
You're not challenging each other.
You're not challenging yourself because that means you're just being, what's that, slothful?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of it. You can get into that.
Kind of settled in.
You're like, yeah, let's just watch TV tonight. We don't have to
right.
do anything. We don't have to record today. We don't have to go dig holes. We don't have to go cut grass. So many things.
Which is all the things we've done today.
Yeah, we're tired.
Plus more.
We're exhausted.
Oh yeah, but it's only halfway through.
Yeah, halfway through the day. Kid, the baby singing out there. But we have to tell you, I mean, it's so important to recognize that there are 2 communities within the LGBT community. I want to say that one more time because I'm going to cut out some of the other stuff. But there's a community of people who want to live in peace. And there's a community of people that don't. And when we look at the conservative right, even Catholics, there's a group of people that want to live in peace. And there's a group of people that don't. They want to have this conflict because the conflict gives them purpose. Well, we're here to tell you that conflict is chaos. It's among the deadly sins. You have to avoid that. I tell my kids every day, run away from the evil and run towards what is good.
Even Jesus took away the scabbard of the zealot.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can tell you that my friends that are in that community are upset about what is happening within that community. And there's some that don't tell everybody they're in the community, which is even worse because they're seeing people they love saying bad things to each other.
And they just let it happen.
So that person isn't evil. The sins that we just listed are. If a person, whether they're in the LGBT community or they're in a Catholic church, in the Protestant church, or not any community, if they're following those, stay away from them. If they're practicing the virtues, run towards them. Be friends with them. Who they love, that doesn't matter unless they're not loving God.
Right.
That's the only person you need to worry about them loving, because every other sin is going to be rectified and healed by Him.
Jesus loves the
Not
tax
us.
collector.
He does. Not the sin.
Right.
Jesus wasn't committing the sin. He wasn't taking taxes from people.
Right.
He was just hanging out with them and giving him a good example.
Yeah.
Not participating in the debauchery. So in this month of the Sacred Heart, I want to express my love to my LGBT friends that are struggling to be who they are and feel that they can't and they have to hide. And I want everyone to pray for those people that are treating them horribly. And remember that evil is evil, and there are pedophiles out there that are trying to hurt our kids.
Yes.
They're not carrying flags. They're not, it's some of them are, but you have to separate them. Look to see who's following the virtues. Look to who's following God, and that other stuff, it will weed out the evil very fast. So again, in this week of in this month of the Sacred Heart, I want to express those prayers to you guys, and I want to
pray for your fortitude.
Pray for your fortitude, and when you have to choose between being mean and loving, love.
Choose kindness.
But don't allow yourself to be abused.
Yeah.
So you can love and not be attacked. So, pretty heavy topic today. So we're wearing the sainthood shirts. So when you're a saint, you have to love everyone, regardless of whether you like them or not, or if you agree with them. That's the basics of what Christ said. Love as I have loved. And he loved so much that he allowed himself to be just completely ravaged. So, you want to say anything before we sign off? I'm going to keep going. I'm on a soapbox. So it's time to get off before I wake the kids up.
Come, Holy Spirit. We'll see you next time.
Work hard.
Be kind.
Have fun.